Hi, I'm Kari Simpson, and the purpose of this production is to ensure that there is an accurate record available for those of you who might be reporting on a landmark defamation case, that you have the accurate facts, the true account, and where this case is at, because this case is far from over. Back in 1997, a radio talk show host by the name of Rafe Mair, a very popular talk show host, some would say the most popular in all of Canada, went on a 2-year tangent about me. He dedicated over 40 editorials, calling me every name under the sun, horrific, vile names. Rafe Mair is a liar. He knows it, I know it, and the courts know it. So what started all this brouhaha with Rafe Mair? Well, I took a very public position on the protection of parental rights within the public education system. And that position involved a political hot potato, namely homosexuality. And in this case in British Columbia, homosexuality being promoted in the classrooms of British Columbia. Back in 1997, our local BC Teachers Federation, the provincial union for the teachers here in BC, decided that they would pass a resolution that stated they wanted to promote, their word, promote, through curricular changes, issues around homophobia and the promotion of homosexuality within our schools. Shortly thereafter, our governing party of the day, the NDP party, decided it would adopt the same resolution. An emergency resolution was put through and voted on and passed. Again, the word promote in the resolution. Now, I have no issue with what goes on in the public education system. I don't think that there's any hope for it. My only concern was that parents should be told what their children were being taught. And at that point in time, parents were required to be notified if there was sensitive subject matter being taught to their children in the schools. Of course, this created a problem for homosexist activist teachers like James Chamberlain, who happens to this day to be the social justice coordinator for the BC Teachers Federation. Back in the time when we were worrying about this, he was a kindergarten grade 1 teacher in the Surrey School District. Now, I had the goods on James Chamberlain. While he presented himself to the media as being a victim and so hard done by and everybody was just cruel to him because he was gay, I had information that told me he was basically teaching other teachers how to circumvent Ministry of Education policy so that they didn't have to teach or tell parents what they were teaching in the classroom. I also ended up, through a variety of circumstances, getting a lot more damning information on Mr. Chamberlain, but a little bit more of that later. Rafe Mair took umbrage with my position on this, which was a very practical one. As a matter of fact, I would defend anybody's right, and my public record would state this, to go and have sexual relationships with whomever they choose. Just keep it in the bedroom, keep it in your house, don't bring it into the classrooms of British Columbia unless you tell parents. Again, there is no hope in my mind for the public education system unless things change drastically. So my publicly stated position was, do what you want in the classroom, just tell parents. This is an important factor in this case because at the end of this video, you will be convinced, because you won't need me to tell you, the facts will speak for themselves. The facts of this case will prove beyond a shadow of doubt that our courts here in BC are corrupt, at least the ones involved in my case. The trial judge in our case, Justice Marvin Koningsberg, for instance, who presided over our case, didn't bother to disclose the fact that at the time she was sitting on our case, her family was being sued for defamation in a case down south. Her spouse, the best I understand, a Rafe Mair, it seems, doesn't like Jewish people. As a matter of fact, according to the court records here, which are quite a thick body of evidence, the lawyers down there said he defamed prominent businessmen. He defamed prominent lawyers. He defamed judges. The list of his assaults against these individuals, these verbal assaults and his claims, were vile in nature, hateful. Religious hate is found throughout the disclosed documents within the courts. Now, Rafe Mair also was complained against to our Canadian Human Rights Commission. And after that complaint went through and they contacted him as far as being the complaint was proceeding, he then mediated resolve to the complainants in that case, and the information that was offending to them was taken down from the websites. What's interesting about this case is when you look at the ethical principles for judges as defined by the Canadian Judicial Council, it's clear that Justice Marvin Koningsberg had no business sitting on our case. If your spouse is involved in something similar in nature to a case that you're presiding over, or you have a benefit from this, you're to disqualify yourself. At no time did Justice Marvin Koningsberg give any of the parties involved in my case any insight into what was transpiring within her family. The evidence that I later found out about is even more damning. It seems 2 months prior to Justice Marvin Koningsberg coming down with the decision in my case, she went to the land titles office and transferred their joint assets into her name only. Now this resulted from the defamation suit, the default judgment that had been assigned against her spouse, Lubermer Project, finding its way to BC courts. A case that should have been very simple, a case that in another production of this ongoing series I will give more details on. Anyway, once that case was filed up here, Justice Koningsberg decided to protect their assets. So she did this little land title transfer, the documents I have in here. Now, the funny thing about this is if you and I were to transfer title of our home into another untouchable person, it's called fraudulent conveyance. When Justice Koningsberg does it, the Chief Justice of the BC Supreme Court, then Chief Justice Brenner, now deceased, assigns himself to the case. But as I say, details of that little adventure are going to be saved for another production, and that one is going to be really worth watching. It just gives you a little insight into what's really going on here in BC court. Anyway, back to our case. We go to trial in 2003. We have hearings, I believe it was 6 days, loads of evidence, and Rafe Mair, the liar Rafe Mair and CKNW, get on the stand, and I have to say, to Rafe Mair's credit, he says, no, I haven't heard her speak on it, referring to me. I don't know her position on things. And with all this ignorance, he still felt he was justified in delivering these 40 editorials over the airwaves, in print, any forum that would defame me, destroy my reputation, paint a picture of untruth, paint a picture so vile and so completely contrary to my position on matters that he was honest and decent enough to get in court and say that. Now, what's also interesting about this case is that Rafe Mair, when he was on the stand, testified to how he had an honest belief in what he said. Now, Rafe Mair took umbrage with my position because I also not only decided to support parents, and I issued a document called the Declaration of Family Rights, which prohibited activist teachers from teaching children information that was contrary to their religious and moral and common sense beliefs. One doesn't have to be religious on this front. Common sense will dictate that this information isn't appropriate for 5 or 6 year olds. This information isn't appropriate for any grade level because it's propaganda. It doesn't reflect the issues, the true issues around issues involving homosexuality. It's propaganda and doesn't reflect all of the issues, including the health concerns around the practice of homosexuality. Another thing that Rafe Mair was upset about was his perception that I supported the removal of a child from a gay teacher's classroom. This gave Rafe Mair no end of angst, and he made it known publicly. Over and over and over again, he said Kari Simpson supports the removal of a child from a teacher's classroom simply because the teacher is gay. Well, that is nonsense. And if Rafe Mair had ever taken the time to talk to me, I would have given him insight into the teacher, James Chamberlain. Now, part of another video of this ongoing series, because this whole situation has been an adventure beyond an adventure, you couldn't write a better script, is that James Chamberlain was one of the teachers that hauled me up before the Human Rights Commission. Now, he did so because he was very upset over the Declaration of Family Rights, which put a big wrench in their little political agenda within the public education system. But again, that's going to be for another video. And this is an ongoing series that's well worth listening to. But James Chamberlain does factor heavily into this case, and what's brilliant about this, I won't give you all the details, but one of the things that I acquired during a human rights tribunal with James Chamberlain were his transcripts. Yes, James Chamberlain was on the stand for 4 days, I believe, and during that time, his transcripts will tell you himself that he lied on national television about what he was teaching in the classroom, that he required small children, he was teaching grade 5 and 6-year-olds at that time, to check their religious beliefs at his classroom door. He admitted under oath that he was teaching other teachers how to circumvent the Ministry of Education policy, a policy that protected parental rights within the public education system, on how not to notify parents and teachers under another portion of the curriculum. This teacher is a buffoon. He is a liar. He doesn't deserve to be within the profession. He certainly doesn't deserve to be teaching 5 and 6-year-olds. You bet I supported these parents taking their child out of this teacher's classroom. Rafe Mair never knew the facts, because remember, Rafe Mair never spoke to me about this. He never wanted to know. He just wanted to go on his little tangent. So you will see throughout Rafe Mair's editorials constant reference to Kari Simpson simply supporting parents for removing their child out of this gay teacher's classroom simply because he was gay. That is an outright fabrication. That is a lie. And you know what else is tragic about this? Is that Rafe Mair's listeners and all the people that were being filled in on these details were being delivered a bill of goods. They weren't being given the true facts. So when you hear radio station CKNW as the top news media in BC and across Canada, forget it. They lie. They allow their talk show hosts to lie. They knew that Rafe Mair was not being honest, and they allowed this to happen. Now, when we went to court, it was quite an interesting thing. We presented all kinds of evidence. We brought in our witnesses. It was a good trial. And just as the trial was closing, at least the part about giving evidence, Justice Marvin Koningsberg became very distressed. And she demanded that we all appear for a settlement conference. And I remember thinking, well, this is bizarre. Settlement conferences should happen before we go through 6 days of trial, because this is costing me hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we go to the settlement conference, and my understanding is that, she's just going to sort of give us an idea of the lay of the land here. Instead, she starts berating Rafe Mair. You owe her an apology, she tells Rafe Mair. You guys need to settle this. Then the judge starts talking about how our values are different, how she's pro-choice and I'm pro-life, but that doesn't matter, things that are irrelevant to this court case. Then she says the most bizarre thing that I've ever heard. She looks at me and she says, Mrs. Simpson, you and Mr. Mair are both very influential people in this province. You can help the court here. I remember thinking, why would I help the court? This isn't about me helping the court. This is the court acting in a responsible and appropriate manner within our civil society. After all, for 2 years I did try to convince CKNW to shut Rafe Mair up. But, he's a big draw. He makes a lot of money. Oh, yeah, did I mention that he's also a lawyer? Oh, and a politician? Friends in all the right places, I would guess. But, when I read our Charter of Rights, I don't see special treatment should be given to certain individuals because of, that they're part of the legal brethren or part of the political scene. No, I see the word everyone. Everyone is equal. Apparently not. So we make an offer for Rafe Mair to settle. We'd have made an offer beforehand for them to settle, a reasonable offer. But instead they wanted to cost you, the taxpayers, a lot of money, because every time those courtrooms open up, it's out of your pocketbooks, and they refused to settle. We were feeling pretty confident at this point. So when the decision came down, and of course the decision came down without me knowing all the issues around Justice Koningsberg's little problems with her family, namely her spouse, Lubomir Prychulek, at this point in time. The decision comes down in 2004, June. Justice Koningsberg finds that Rafe Mair defamed me. He did so maliciously. He promoted hatred and contempt against Kari Simpson and her ilk, whatever my ilk is. I guess that's all the common sense thinking people out there. But she found that he had the defense a fair comment because he had an honest belief in what he said, and the other problem is that she found his assertions, according to in reference to the gay teacher, to be comment instead of fact. Well, now that's kind of funny because in one of Rafe Mair's own editorials, he says to his audience, here are the facts. So either the court knows better what's going on in Rafe Mair's mind than Rafe Mair does, or the court decided to turn a blind eye to this and the fix was in. So for the first little saga of this story, we have a trial judge sitting on my case that should never have been there. She had a duty to disqualify herself. She breached the ethical principles as detailed by the Canadian Judicial Council. There is an argument to be made that she was involved in obstructing justice because she was certainly causing a headache for the lawyers that were trying to collect the decision, the judgment against her spouse, Mair Prychalek, and we have her messing with the facts. Oh yeah, the other problem with her decision is that I was involved in opposing the 3 books in the schools. Well, my public record very clearly states, as I have emphasized throughout this production, that my position is make the public education system as bad as you can and maybe we'll save some kids. My position on the 3 books was put whatever you want to in the schools, just tell parents. At no time did I oppose those books going into the system. Quite the opposite. I thought they were a great tool then to demonstrate to people exactly how much BS was happening in their children's classroom. We're going to go to part 2 now, so I'm going to close with this. Please join me as we continue on what happens at the Court of Appeal, because certainly I appealed this decision. And then for the final production, the Supreme Court of Canada. You won't want to miss that one because the story gets even better. I'm Kari Simpson. I look forward to joining you again on this production for Drive for Justice.